everyone, and welcome back to the Tori Nook Talk Show, where real conversations meet real success. I'm Tori Nook, and I'm the CEO and founder of Anchor Retail. I'm an entrepreneur, wife, and I'm a mother of three. In each episode, I feature leaders, entrepreneurs, and creators who've built their successful careers and their lives with intention, intuition, and a strong sense of who they are. We talk about decisions that shape a life, the moments that test you, and the habits and the mindset that keep you moving forward. My goal is to learn how people create success on their own terms and to share those insights with all of you. So I hope you enjoy the show. And my guest today is Ken Ashley. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here on your air, Tori.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a real privilege. I think it was Amy Calandrino who told me about you in April to meet you because I was going down to Atlanta for business, and it was meeting you for breakfast was even better than I ever expected, between being a broker, but also the fact that you were an up and coming author with your new book coming out on March 10th. And also you are the founder of CREI Summit, which I will have to say was my first year going because I didn't even get into social media until last October 1st. And it's definitely been life changing. And we're going to get into that. But, with Ken, he is, just to introduce everybody to his almost 3 decades worth of experience as a commercial real estate executive strategist. He's a speaker and industry influencer with decades worth of experience helping companies align with their business strategies and real estate decisions. He's the executive director and senior leader at Cushman Wakefield, where he focuses on tenant advisory services and high-level consulting brokerage work. Ken's built a very strong reputation, too, in the commercial real estate industry over his long career. He's distinguished by various professional achievements. The list is ongoing, but just to name a few, he has earned the SIOR, and the MCR credentials, placing him in a really small percentage of real estate professionals out there. He's been a top producer nationally, and he's a long-standing member of the $1 Million Club with the Atlanta Commercial Board of Realtors and Forbes Council. Ken also serves as a Georgia chapter president for SIOR as well. And he's also been an instructor for CoreNet Global programs. I too, because you're a big man of service. So, you also are part of the Boy Scouts, Leadership Atlanta, are just a few of the nonprofits that you're working on. And, then you also have the CRE Summit, which is a big part of this conversation because you've really helped launch so many people out there that are in the social media world, whether it's from LinkedIn to podcasts to X, you've created a whole community to really launch people and also educate them as well. It's probably one of the most influential contributions in CRE is, my opinion. And if anyone does not know what CREI Summit is, it's a premier annual conference that Ken formed in 2020 during COVID. And it's just focusing on marketing, digital strategy, personal branding, and thought leadership within commercial real estate, even though I think anyone could go and learn a ton. So he's bringing together brokers, marketers, and industry leaders to share their insights and digital tools and social media. So welcome, Ken.
Good to be here, Tori. I appreciate the accolades. Let's get to work.
Yeah, let's get to work. So I would say the first thing is when you look at your career and life as a whole, since you're, 3 decades in of being a broker and also being a husband to Karen as well. I mean, they're both, almost 3 decades in and father of 4. But how do you look at your career and life as a whole? And what do you believe has shaped you most into being the leader you are today?
That's a very insightful question. Well, there's obviously a lot that goes into making the human beings that we all have become. Certainly your parents are important. I think a lot about my father, who ran his company for 40 years and was a great leader, a great relationship builder, and a great servant leader. So that had certainly a big impact. And then, I believe God puts people in your life who you can look up to, who are mentors. I think of like a Tommy Newberry, who is an executive coach who just helped me understand a lot about myself. And, by the way, I think business people need coaches. Athletes have coaches. Why are we so different?
Right.
And then, The not-for-profits that I've been involved with, there have been some great community leaders who are doing amazing things that I watch and emulate. But I think behind it all, the most important is my relationship with my wife, with Karen. We've been married a long time now. We're 33 years. We've been together over 35 years, and you have to honor the dating brochure. I love her very much and want to honor and respect her in every way that I can. And, we do have four wonderful children. And I used to tell them when they were growing up, I married your mother. I didn't marry you. You're a welcome addition to this family, and I love you dearly. But we have to focus on our spouses, I believe. And when the
Percent.
children leave, which, they're in the process, they all live in Atlanta, they're all amazing people and very proud of them. But when they leave the house, it's like the end of the movie. You still got to have something to talk about.
100%. And I remember I always loved listening to Joel Osteen, and he was really the first person, and I'm in my late 30s and you never even thought of it that way. It's God first, you second, your spouse third, your kids fourth, right? Careers fifth.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Exactly.
think even Kris Jenner follows that too. I remember seeing a social media post saying that, but it's true because if your relationship isn't intact, how are your kids going to be intact, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then when all that's intact, your business can be intact.
Right. Peace at home is very important to high performance in the workplace.
100%.
And of course, if there's not peace at home, and unfortunately millions of Americans deal with that, it is
Yeah.
that much harder to perform. So I'm sympathetic and empathetic if that's the case.
Yeah, and I think us, doing what we do, hiring and training, you sure can see that come out, who came from what.
Right.
Yeah. And I think you don't think about the importance, especially when you grew up in a family that was a peaceful home, how unbelievably important that is.
Yes.
No matter what your socioeconomic class is, it
Right.
makes a big difference. I know you've often said that real estate should enable like high level business performance, but when did that philosophy like first click with you?
Yeah, I think in the first third of my career, like a lot of brokers, I thought about sticks and bricks all the time because that's the profession we're in. It's a little bit like the carpenter thinking about his or her tools and wood and learning that craft. So that's an important phase of a career. But as I began to develop self confidence in my career and get to know more and more executives, I have a natural intellectual curiosity about how they run their businesses. And so it's fun to talk to them. But it began to dawn on me after about 5 or 6 years in the business that we enable businesses, not the other way around. We're not here because of office or industrial or whatever the type of real estate you practice. We're here to support the user. And I often say I help companies solve real estate problems. And when those problems are solved, the deliverable is it enables them to accomplish something. For example, if they choose the right location, a high performance office building, then return to office is easier, and that can institute or instill a good culture, allow better performance. It all sort of flows, but the real estate supports the imperative. For example, look, we have a very fragile supply chain today. Are you a just in time or just in case kind of company? Well, we can deploy strategies for both through the supply chain, but the warehouse is there because it's supporting goods being shipped. So it's just a way of thinking that I think has evolved, and I know our clients appreciate it because our fundamental goal in starting a real estate transaction is to help them become better in their business and to help the person in charge of the deal get bonus, promoted, to grow in their career. Because the antithesis of that is a real estate transaction is very high profile in most companies, and you can commit a CLM, a career limiting move, and we specialize in avoiding that.
100%. And you've spent 27 years advising companies. What do you think has changed most in how even leaders think about real estate today? And you deal with some high level people, Ken, so big international companies.
Well, we try, and what has not changed is we're all human beings. We all have hopes, dreams, desires, and fears that
Yeah.
we're working through. So that will never change, fortunately.
Yeah.
I think what has changed is the speed of decision making required and
Okay.
risk of the decisions, and now a palpable fear by knowledge workers in the workplace that AI is going to replace or eliminate their job.
Mm-hmm.
article, and I know you'll release this later, but there was an article in the Wall Street Journal today about knowledge workers and the fear of AI. We had the fear of COVID, of course. By the way, during COVID, we thought safety would be the big issue in the workplace.
Yeah.
Everybody feels just fine, so that turned out to be a nothing burger. But in terms of return to office, but I think that the seriousness of the decisions that have to be made and in this competitive environment. And then the last thing I would say is the speed of information. So you think about it when our parents or grandparents, were in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't have cell phones, right?
No.
And you would go to a lunch meeting and you write the thank you letter and you'd look at your mail. And so the speed of business was much slower.
Yeah.
And then everything changed when we got these things. And 2009, I think, is when they came to the workplace, and the speed of business has been picking up ever since.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I mean, when I even started in 2020, they didn't even have really email. Email didn't even get really popular till I think 2001. And that was just like at the precipice. Like we were still just doing faxes, which is so crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But it did take longer. But it comes with its headaches too, the nonstop
Yes,
emails. That's a whole other battle.
it is.
And, being the top producer that you are, what habits and decisions do you believe consistently drive your level of success?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot about the Pareto principle. Vilfredo Pareto was an Italian economist who
Right.
studied wealth.
Hmm.
Cool name, Vilfredo, by
I
the way.
know.
And what he discovered is that 80% of the wealth in English society will always be held by 20% of the people. And then in the 1950s, that idea was rediscovered by car companies trying to compete with Japanese manufacturing processes. And so what they learned, and it is a true and very, very important lesson, is today is known as the 80-20 principle. And so what that means is only 20% of the efforts you put into the week will generate 80% of the results. So if you think about that, all efforts don't have equal return. During a 40-hour work week or 50-hour, how you're working, only a portion of that time will be most impactful. So here's the way I would describe it to my team. If you evolve the 80-20 principle like this, think about a performer. Let's just say Billy Joel. Billy Joel is amazing. I mean, I've seen him perform live. He's an incredible performer. But what Billy Joel does is he plays the piano, he sings, and he writes songs. And he is Billy Joel. What he does not do is set up the lights, pop the popcorn, or sell the t-shirts.
It's
And so it is incumbent upon us as real estate professionals to discover what you're really good at that a lot of other people can't do. And it could be you're the
hmm
best analyst out there.
right.
You understand, you can play it like a Stradivarius. In my case, what I have discovered is it's developing and maintaining relationships that lead to commercial real estate transactions. And so I spent my time collecting friends and executives and building those relationships and being very, very intentional
Mm.
about the relationships that matter. So that's my 80-20, is focusing my week on relationships that lead to business.
That's excellent advice. Excellent, because that 80-20 rule applies to a lot of things in life, not just business. What, switching gears into the CRE Summit,
Mhm.
that you created in 2020 and you had the inspiration during COVID. What inspired you to how did that epiphany hit where you saw a gap in the industry that needed filled, and I mean, it's shocking no one saw it earlier, but it is wild. I mean, I know 2020, it was 5 years ago, but I mean, social media has been around for a long while, even before 2020.
Well, so, social media has actually been around since, kind of the mid 2000s,
Right.
2006, 7 were some of the earlier sites. And Twitter X came online in 2008. And so what happened was in COVID, I realized that how we develop business is going to change forever. Remember, that's what I think about a lot. And there are two things that commercial real estate brokers have to do in developing business. One is sales, which is speaking and listening with the intent to convince. And if you can't do that, maybe find another profession. So that's table stakes. But marketing is what they think about you before you walk in the room. That's the brand and the brand management that you referenced a minute ago. So how we establish brand has changed and is changing very much. And so during COVID, I started looking around at people who were doing it well, and there was no source of truth. So I decided to put together a list of people at the time in Twitter, and we put together a little badge. So everybody that was on the list got an email with a badge that, as my graphic designer said, will make their mom proud. And so they started posting it in social media. I went on to 99 Designs, and for $200 had the logo created, the
Yeah.
blue field logo.
Yeah.
And we used CREI because back then you had hashtags, and CRE was an often used one, but we wanted to differentiate, and we created the lowercase I to connote servant leadership, that we would use
I
to
love
the
that.
extent that any of us have influence, that we would use it for good and to support others.
I didn't know that about the little I. I always kind of wondered why there's a little I, but that's awesome. I mean, it's so focused on community, which I love, and everyone's so helpful with their knowledge and really selfless with it, um, and focusing on growth and innovation. But like, why do you believe like connection and collaboration are so critical right now in 2025? Because really, when you started this in 2020, I feel like social media really hasn't exploded. Really, it's been the past 2 to 3 years. You see people and they're big and they're following and they're consistent who are out there.
Yeah. Well, it is changing. You're correct. And first of all, our friends in residential are far ahead of us in the use of these tools
Good to point out.
to develop their business. Second of all, we have changed our focus a little bit from being just on social media, but to use digital tools and your tech stack in your pursuit of business. But the reason that the community is important, first of all, I believe in an abundance mentality. That's just a better way to live your life.
100%.
And the competitive issue is not the idea, it's the execution of the idea. So if you and I, Tori, we're not in the same city, but if we were at opposite shops looking across at each other, we can still be friends. They call that co-opetition. We don't have to be enemies at all. Now, you're not going to share your pursuits, and you're certainly not going to share your client information. So let's be clear about that. And I think the community is a much needed outlet for people, because anytime you get like-minded people together focused on a project, there'll be passion there. And then finally, I would say there are careers where there's much success. And success is sometimes defined by money, sometimes defined by your title or your accomplishments. But I seek a career of significance and the ability to impact others, because, like it or not, we're all going to leave the workforce one day. And I think impact is something I think a lot about.
It's beautiful because, I mean, you want to leave a legacy in anything you're doing. And I think some people may not think like what they're doing is important, or they think, oh, I work here, I work there, I do that. But I mean, everyone's life is important in how they're going to leave it. And people say people don't watch you, but they do.
Very true.
For younger professionals who are entering the industry, what does CREI offer them that you wish, had existed earlier in even your career?
I think an outlet to talk to other experts who are successful in their career, who've been there and done that. I remember when I started, the only thing I wanted to do was sit in my broker's office and listen to him talk.
Well, yeah, that's how you
I didn't
learn.
understand the language of the business.
Yeah.
And this is very much a blacksmith kind of business, in the sense that we have to learn by working under a master how to do this. What CREI Summit does is it brings together a room full of masters that you can reach out to and build relationships with and have access to, that frankly you might otherwise not be able to get access to. So I think that's important. And then you referenced it at the top, but I'm pleased to tell you on March 10th, a new resource will come out. There are not, if there are any, there are not many books that talk about how to be a commercial real estate broker, how to break in. Part of the book is how to go from sitting on Netflix, your couch watching Netflix, to breaking into business. And then a part of the book is what to do from day one forward, how to fashion that business plan, and how to be successful in your niche in commercial real estate. It really is, and I posted this before, I think the best profession in the world. I love what I do.
You do, and it shows for sure. Do you want to tell everyone the name of your book that's coming out? I love the title.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. It's called The Real Estate Prescription, The Blueprint to breaking into commercial real estate and closing multi-million-dollar deals. And the book will be available on Audible. It'll be available at Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Amazon, Goodreads, really anywhere that you're looking for a book. We'll have finished shortly a workbook that will accompany this.
Nice.
And so I would say the target audience is really two groups: college students who are trying to figure out what they want to do next.
Yeah.
And knowledge workers who are in the first third of their career who are worried about AI taking their jobs. There certainly is, I hope, some benefit to young commercial real estate brokers in just thinking about how to develop a prospect approach, how to define your market, and how to hold yourself accountable.
That's a big one because you're normally a 1099 and you're your own little entrepreneur.
That's right.
Without, Big Daddy over your shoulder, micromanaging you. It's a different ball game. Your book sounds really compatible with Bethany Babcock's CREI launch that she's doing, which I'm actually hosting here in Cleveland in June. So that'll be exciting to have a Midwest location. Excellent. When I go speak at colleges to the real estate clubs, I will make sure to mention your book. I wish this was around when I was starting out. I had to figure out all this like you on myself, on my own.
Well, and I want to say for the record, I'm a big Bethany fan. She's an amazing human being. So
she is. I actually just interviewed her before you. So yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And one of the things, every successful career includes different seasons, just like your personal life, right? But what has been one of like the toughest professional challenges that you've had, and how did you navigate it?
Absolutely.
I know. You want to just pick one in particular? Because I know 27 years, you got a couple.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I quickly will tell you two short stories. The first, the only company I ever wanted to work for in commercial real estate was Cushman Wakefield. So it was just, when they offered me the position, it was one of the greatest days of my life. And I went home and I talked way too long about it to Karen. And after about half an hour, she said, well, I have some news too. And I thought we were going to talk about the social plans for the weekend. And she said, I'm pregnant.
That's such a cool
synchronicity. And while I was overjoyed, I was also terrified. So I called my buddy, Chip Patterson, who's still a friend today, and started valeting cars the very next night. Work until 4:30 in the morning on the weekends, valeting cars to earn money. And I didn't close the transaction for 8 months and 2 weeks in. 9 months, right?
You beat me. I was at 9 months.
Okay. Well, I was tracking to the birth of my son. I'd given myself that long to be successful.
Okay.
And 8 months and 2 weeks in, we closed the deal, and we took some of that money from that transaction. We bought the bed frame we sleep in this very day. So I wake up every morning and I'm very happy about that. I think the second more and maybe more relatable to people is what happened in 2009. So that was a pretty serious downturn, and I experienced lumpy cash flow in a big way. And I've been very open about this. I had not been as good as I should have been with debt. And debt can be a wonderful thing. Debt's like a fire on a fireplace on a Saturday night. It can be a great experience, but it can also burn down your house.
Correct.
And so one of the reasons that I became working in social media, I guess is the way to put it, is because of the low transaction velocity in 2009 and 10, and I needed to find a different way to market myself. So I'm pleased to report that I did raise 4 kids, and they all had shoes, and they all went to college, and Karen and I are doing just fine now, and we very quickly got rid of all personal debt, including our home. I know that's a debate sometimes online, but in the profession that you and I are in,
I paid off my mortgage a long time ago.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're struggling, I have been there with you. And I think the thing that really helped me was some advice a friend of mine gave me. He said, close the door and make the calls.
Yeah.
That was the accountability that I needed to come in, have your list ready on Saturday morning, and come in on Monday and start banging out the calls. Success is a verb. You got to get after it.
Right. That's right. I love that. And here you are, you're in a super, during the recession was a high stake time. How did you personally even handle that pressure? And how do you even handle the pressure of high stake decision making?
There were some sleepless nights. I mean, there's a lot of stress that was involved. And what I realized mid-career is that I'd gotten past the stage where valeting cars would allow me to pay my bills. So we only had two choices. One was to significantly adjust our lifestyle, which would have been painful for a number of reasons, or the second was for me to close the door and make the calls. So the best antidote to anxiety is action and getting after it and coming up with a plan. But your plan in work has to be a workable plan. So there's a saying, the riches are in the niches. And so I believe in your marketplace, finding either a product type or vertical, like accounting firms or law firms or medical, or an area. Challenged someone on my team this morning. I said, go to our large market, but I want you to pick 6 buildings and learn everything about those buildings. So the consultants say, you can't boil the ocean. So that's a very consulting speak way to talk.
Right.
But the mistake that a lot of commercial real estate professionals is to try to serve an entire marketplace, and you got to pick a niche.
Yeah.
That is what we did.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really sound, solid advice. Pick a niche, stay consistent, period. You don't have to be super smart to be doing this. You just have to have, like you said, a plan. And I like how you pointed out, you do it on Saturday. I do mine on Sunday.
Yeah.
And you have your plan for the week and follow it. We're spoiled now. We have more than enough CRMs, Outlook, task lists. You can keep your list.
Yep. That's
Check
right.
it off. What role has, resilience played in sustaining the long-term success rather than just short-term wins for you?
Yeah, such a good question as well. I think that a belief in yourself, building a network of people around you that truly care about you, that aren't looking to take anything or not looking for something.
Yeah.
But are authentically good friends. That relationship, to the extent that you're married with your spouse, is all important. He or she is, behind you and thinking about you and believes in you, is important. But then there's when there's a stressful no, which we all have to face. My head is flat from all the doors that have slammed on it. It's but it's context. And so I have something I do called a gratitude audit. And the gratitude audit is, if you've had some bad news, you take a minute and you pull out a piece of paper and you write down all the blessings in your life. And if you could actually do that every morning, and I say all the blessings, write down 10, it's amazing. I mean, you start to think about the fact that your home, your bed, your income, your profession, your education, your parents, your siblings. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And what you realize is that challenge that you're dealing with that seems so huge becomes smaller and smaller as you contextualize it with the blessings in your life.
Love that. And I do the same thing. I do at least 3 things I'm grateful for every morning. It really puts things in perspective to stay in a high vibe, high focused life. I really like how you talk about paying your civic rent. I'll put that in quotes, air quotes. Where did that mindset come from?
Yeah. Larry Gellerstadt's a great leader here in Atlanta. He's CEO of Cousins Properties for many years and a friend I respect highly. And he was the one who first voiced that idea. And that is that in any community, a community has given us much. It's given us relationships and a place to live and success and restaurants and entertainment. And we have a duty to pay it back, to certainly to reach back down the ladder to help people. And to pay that civic rent. So the way that manifests for me, in addition to the book that I've dedicated to young people, is by serving in not-for-profits. And it is actually, it's a really fun thing to do, to serve in these not-for-profits. Not all board meetings are fun, but
I know
the outcome is fun.
Yeah.
The unintended outcome is that you meet some great people, and sometimes those great people have real estate needs. If you think about it the other way around, you're chasing real estate business, then of course that's a suboptimal way to think about serving a not-for-profit. But if you're authentic in your passion for the not-for-profit, you can do well by doing good.
Right. That's right. And how are the service organizations like Leadership Atlanta that you're part of, the Boy Scouts, Crime Stoppers, how have they shaped your leadership style?
Well, I've gotten the ability to watch some great leaders up close, and I realized the importance of a couple of basic things, servant leadership. So it's very true in the U.S. military that the commander eats last. so his or her soldiers know that they're putting the needs of the people ahead of them. In fact, they are serving them as a leader. Authority is something that is given, respect is something that is earned. So I love very much the servant leadership style. And then I've also learned the power of recognition. Napoleon said one time, I've discovered the most amazing thing: a man will die for a nod. And what he meant by that is awards given to soldiers will drive them to do incredible and heroic things. And so if you use recognition authentically and don't overuse it, it is a very powerful tool. And then I think the third thing is, you mentioned the Boy Scouts, Scouting USA, the power of delegation, and this book that has been so impactful to me called Who Not How.
I love that book.
And yeah, Dan and his partner have written a great book.
Yeah.
American business people have asked the wrong question. How are we going to solve that problem? Well, no, the question is who. And back to the 80-20 principle, if in your life, if you're listening to me, if you will think about the business problems that are not your Billy Joel, if you'll empower who's to do those for you and delegate with clarity, your success will go way up.
Absolutely. 100%. It was very good perspective on all that. With your family, I mean, you've got obviously a demanding career. I know your kids are big now, but how do you define success at home versus success at work?
Well, first of all, the time clock turns off. When I'm in the workplace, I constantly think about the time, and
Okay.
we the 2080 principle, which we can unpack if you'd like, but I think about what my time is worth per hour, and saying no, as unfortunate as that is, it makes you more money than sometimes saying yes. But that completely reverses. Time is, when I'm at home, is plentiful. And I think a couple things. A friend of mine has on his garage door opener the word joy. So when you hit that, you open up and you come home, even if your kids are young and your spouse has been just beaten to a pulp during the day and everybody's running around, dirty, and dinner's not ready and chaos. If you will bring a sense of joy into the household, because as you said a minute ago, people are watching you, whether you know it or not. I think a second big thing is thinking about not being distracted, whether it's technology, the watch. So, for years, I would come home and have dinner, do bath time. And then, if I needed to go back to work for a while and catch up on the emails, but doing both at the same time, it just breaks my heart when I see people out in public places and their children are there and all they can do is look at their device.
I know it's honestly getting to be a disgusting illness. It
Yeah.
really is.
And what I've come to try to do, even at business lunches, is keep the machine off the table, because it just sends a message.
Percent. I mean, you could be turned off. You're not going to lose a deal. And, how much information do you really need? Like, block the time out. It's like one of the things you guys all teach at the CREI, at the summit, is block your time out. Like, when you're doing post, when are you going to respond? It should not be an all day event. You've got to work. You got a family. You got to take care of your own health and yourself.
That's right. Day blocking and
Exactly.
hour blocking is an important skill. But then, and we talked about this a little bit before we went on air, is honoring the dating brochure with your spouse and really leaning in and investing in them. And something, that we all struggle with, and me included, listening.
Right.
There's something we call the law of familiarity, and that is the person you're most familiar with, your attention to them seems to diminish because they're there and you can always talk to them later. A lot of us in this profession, me included, are pretty ADD people.
100%.
My most important client is my wife. And I listen carefully to clients all day long because that's how I make my living. So I owe her the same respect. So, Karen, if you're listening, I'm going to do better at listening.
Karen's got a good catch. And I think what's important is hearing from a man, because obviously men and women, listen to me in the, interviews. I think it's important, for men and younger men to even hear that, because your relationship is everything. And I'm just curious, with the dating rules, like, what else do you find important even beyond just listening to keep your relationship? I mean, I'm assuming you guys, the two of you, go out probably Saturday night or Friday, or even maybe once during the week, or do you make sure you take X amount of vacations a year?
Well, so a friend of mine said you can plan surprises because she doesn't know. So you can actually schedule, hey, next Thursday is the time to pick up the flowers. And keeping the relationship fresh involves new adventures. So we love to travel. My goal is to take her on one trip a month, which is basically a long weekend. And then finding things that you have in common. You develop a hobby, collect coins, take pictures of birds, talk about history, but be intentional about developing something that you both find interesting and fun will help be the sinew of the relationship and keep the two of you together. And then, listen, the relationships have ups and downs, and you just have to manage through. And then the last thing I'll say is what I've come to know is that love is a decision, not an emotion. And
Agree.
it's tough. I mean, when the kids are little and everybody's fatigued, that's a
Yeah,
difficult season. But it's a
very.
different season now when it's just the two of us at home. We actually have a daughter living with us, but she's
Adult.
upstairs.
Yeah.
She's an adult. That's right.
Yeah.
So love is a decision.
There's no perfect world, and I think people don't realize that. Like, you have to know in your heart, are we gonna make it? And, that's something like my husband, has said 22 years later too. I mean, it is a decision. Like, we stayed on the roller coaster ride and, you either decide you wanna come out on top or not. I mean, I think everyone could throw in the towel just like with business. The question is, do you wanna keep going?
Indeed.
What has marriage and fatherhood taught you that you feel that business never could?
Look at you with the zinger questions.
Well, I'm keeping it real. People like real people. People might just look at you, Ken, as this like big powerhouse, but you're human
Yep, I'm very much human.
like me.
I think we invest so much in our children when they're little, and it's a very laborious exercise then. But what I think family has taught me is that those investments over many years, the ROI is huge. I mean, over Thanksgiving, we were all together, every member of our family, and just seeing everybody at the table and seeing how my kids and their spouses and significant others like each other is just manna from heaven. It's just incredible. So I'm very proud of each of them. And that's something obviously very different in the workplace. It's fun to see people grow in their careers, but you don't know them like you know your kids. I think the other thing I see is that we talk a lot about helicopter parenting or what they call road grader parenting, making
Yeah,
perfectly straight ahead of kids.
right.
As painful as it is, sometimes seeing children experience no or experience that they didn't get the award or they didn't get the job they were looking for actually makes them better human
100%.
beings. Iron sharpens iron. And
Mhm.
so those are some things that I've seen about how my children have grown and prospered and succeeded. And then it's always interesting when they become adults, when they call to talk about hot water heaters and 401ks as opposed
Mhm.
to he hit me or I'm hungry or whatever the other
Yeah.
problems are that we solve.
Or I didn't get this for Christmas, right?
Right.
Well, how do you stay grounded amid all the high expectations and your responsibilities?
You know, one day at a time.
Okay.
You can't get too far ahead of yourself. And I live my life as a pretty excited person. I'm excited about the future. We've
For
got a lot of
sure.
great things to look forward to. And so I remind myself of, the transactions that we've got in the queue, the backlog, the great relationships. That helps me stay grounded. And then,
Mhm.
the idea that all of this is temporary.
Right.
Whatever we're doing is only for a period of time. I am on the watch now, but I will not always be on the watch.
That's right. That's right. And I like how you live day to day. You're not living in the past.
No.
You're not living in the future. You're just focusing on now. And being in the now, I mean, how much do you rely on your instinct versus, say, logic and data when you've got to make major decisions? This is a left brain, right brain versus.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think about it in a couple of contexts. So maybe there's a decision about, whether you're going to pursue something or how you're going to execute for a client on a transaction.
Mhm.
That's fact specific. You got to know the rules of the road. So, just for a second, when we're working on a transaction, we start every deal with a project mandate so that everybody has a schedule and everybody's on the same page. We heard their pain points. We know what we're trying to solve for, and everybody signs off on it. So, that project mandate will guide the decision making. And also, when you're making investment decisions, so to the extent you want to be an LP and invest, I collect people. So the data in that case comes after the people, and I try to build relationships with people that I trust. If it's if it's a decision about where we're going to travel, well, of course, that's largely emotional. I mean, there's some support that you can go, and so it kind of depends on the decision. Sometimes, the decision is where we go to dinner, and that's just what you want to eat.
Right. Well, I mean, there's times like when, like, I'm sure you've had a moment where trusting your just gut, like your intuition made like a really meaningful difference too.
Yeah, I think there's
Your little inner compass.
yeah. Well, listen, we all develop the longer you're in the workplace
Yeah.
or in a relationship, we all develop a wisdom skill set
Yes.
based on millions of inputs that some of them we don't even realize. There's something called thin slicing,
Well,
which
tell me
is to
about it.
say, pardon me?
Tell me about it. Never heard of that.
Thin slicing is the idea that, and it's very true, that within 5 to 6 seconds, we make a decision about if we like someone that we're meeting for the first time. And that
Mm,
is a lot of it is into instinct,
very
intuition. Some of that has to do with the way the person carries themselves, with eye contact, with how they talk. The first 2 minutes are certainly very impactful.
right.
If it's a me conversation, for most people, that's not the pleasant exchange. I did this, I did this.
Right.
So, yes, I think wisdom and intuition definitely help you make decisions, and they help you unpack things that could go wrong because we're designed with the limbic brain to recognize danger.
Yeah.
And so, here's a simple example. Let's say I make an introduction to, I don't know, a furniture person or a vendor, a tech vendor, or something to a client, and they ring me up and say, "We made the sale. We'd like to send you a commission." Well, that's not how my world works. That happened to me recently, and I said, "Just give it to this charity."
Mm-hmm.
So that is a decision. You walk away from, in this case, 10 grand or something like that, but I sleep really good at night. And that is based on the wisdom of going through my career and knowing that, it probably wouldn't be found out. But if it were, I mean, would you end your career over 10 grand? It's just
Right.
crazy.
Believe me, I've seen family situations and relationships busted up over 10 grand, which is crazy, especially when the people have a lot of money. But I like the point that you pointed out that it does take time to formulate your wisdom and intuition. When you and I met in April, I actually just finished my first draft of my first book talking about that, just to try to prevent drama and traumas in other people's lives, because it is a revolving thing that happens throughout our life. You're really creating an amazing legacy for yourself. What do you hope people would say, about the way you've led and served?
You have the best questions. I'll tell you what. I hope people would remember me as a person of honor and integrity who thought of others first, who had that previously mentioned abundance mentality, and that I did make an impact on people and invest in their success because we both know a lot of people that have a lot of money, and above a certain point, yeah, and above a certain point, money and happiness are not directly correlated at all.
Correct.
But for me, I think helping others be successful is what spins my propeller. And
Nice.
then seeing the community impact through the not for profits. I'll give you one quick example. Last Saturday was Shop of the Sheriff. I chair the Fulton County Sheriff's Foundation, and seeing 400 young people come in who were coming from an underserved community get $200 in gift cards to shop at Target, and then a deputy takes them around and helps them pick out their Christmas presents just was a joyous occasion for me to see those young people. $200 means so much to them, and
Yeah.
they'll now have a Christmas. So I those kinds of projects are the cotton candy of life for me.
That is beautiful. It is beautiful to see what you can give back to others.
Yeah,
That really makes your heart feel full.
and I do want to. There's a coda to that, and that is that my family would know how much how proud I am of them and how much I take joy in their success.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, that's to me the biggest project is their success and happiness. What advice would you give listeners who want to create success on their own terms, the ones that aren't soldiers, right? That, not just professionally, but in your own life? I know you kind of tapped on it. You obviously tapped on it, your relationship with Karen, but what would you say beyond that?
Well, I think early on you make some formative decisions in your business career.
Hmm.
And listen, there are plenty of people who are able to build a nice lifestyle on a salary. But I have made the decision over 30 years ago that I'm not going to have a salary. I wake up unemployed every morning. And while
Yeah.
that was a painful decision at the time, it's turned out to be a great decision now. So if in your first third of your career, I think now, especially if you've been in the workplace a few years, re-examining your trajectory
Hmm.
and looking at your path to financial success, first of all. And early in life, I tell people if you will work really hard, take extra jobs, valet cars, do whatever you have to do, and save $10,000, and then simply do one other thing, which is pay yourself $500 a month for the rest of your life, putting it in your savings. The beautiful thing called the time value of money will help you with your financial success. In fact, in 40 years at 7%, you have to check the math, you'll be a millionaire.
Right. That's right.
And part of the financial success that I was talking to a young man the other day who's working 100 hours a week in an hourly job, and God bless him, he's putting in
Wow.
the effort. But I said, young man, you've got to transition where you're trading your time for money to you're trading your value for money,
Right.
and you can create a passive income, which is so important. And so that's that $10,000, pay yourself $500 a month, so you can create a passive income. Because much like a good relationship with your spouse is important, having your finances in order will allow you to live a much happier life.
For
And
sure.
I'm sure there are many people that are listening that are really struggling right now. And for that, I'm sorry. But building your strength of people around you that can support you and care for you and give you honest feedback is important. And then thinking deeply about the trajectory of your career 30 years from now, where are you going to be?
I love that. Exactly. Um, what does like being truly a whole person, like your mind, body, spirit, like mean to you?
Well, always struggling. Listen, you know, always trying to, all of us, I think,
Yeah, we all have struggles,
we all have
we all
issues,
have
right?
problems.
But for me, it's a belief system, a belief in my God, and a belief in that what I'm doing every day is trying to make a difference both to my clients and to my family and to my community. So the belief that you're doing the right thing, I think sometimes about criminals and people that commit these bad acts. I would be a terrible criminal because I just couldn't sleep at night.
Right. Well, you have a conscience, so
Yeah, I mean, a clean conscience is worth more than gold. But no, I think that's a good question. It's all got to work together, and taking care of your body, your mind, your heart, and your soul is all intertwined.
very much so. So, Ken, it was so fantastic speaking with you today. Where can our listeners find you?
Thank you, and Tori, I just want to say you've asked really great questions.
Thank
You're
you.
an easy person to talk to, and I'm so proud of you and the
Thank
way
you.
you give back to so many. But just even doing this podcast, but your
Yeah.
book and all the great things that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I'm pretty easy to find if you just Google, but it's on X. It's at Ken Ashley, LinkedIn Ken Ashley Atlanta, Instagram, Facebook is all sort of the same. We have the website CREI Summit. We'll have a website that is coming but not quite ready at the time of this recording, called the realestateprescription.org, and there you can find a lot of free tools that are available to help you in your career. And just let me know how I can help you.
Awesome. Well, I really want to thank you, for joining me today and, sharing like your expertise, your wisdom, your heart for leadership and service and how to stay in alignment as best as possible. I know if any of this is like resonated with any of our listeners, I really encourage you to explore Ken's work, with the CREI Summit. to follow that, and also to buy his new book that's coming out again on March 10th called The Real Estate Prescription. I really appreciate everyone listening to another episode of the Tori Nook Talk Show. And you can catch, all of our episodes across all the podcast platforms and my YouTube channel. All my social media platforms are at Tori Nook. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would love if you can hit subscribe and never miss an episode. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see a review, rate me, drop a comment, send any notes of what resonated or other people you'd love to see on the show or topics. And I love hearing from you. See you next time.